2 candidates were allowed to appear on the debate stage. 1 candidate was not allowed to appear on the debate stage. We have former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson currently running for president on the Libertarian ticket, and we're going to have the debate we should have had last week. All right, Governor Gary Johnson. Governor, I appreciate you joining us.
Oh, great to be on, as always.
Governor, since you were not allowed to appear in that debate last week, what I have done is I have taken sound bites from the debate, and I thought we could allow you to be in this debate. Does that sound like a plan?
I love it.
All right. Well, this is what I've done. Before anybody accuses me of creative editing, I listened to that debate several times. Most of the time, they did not answer the question. If they did answer, they may have answered in 10 seconds worth of answer and then 15 minutes of mudslinging and things like that. So I have only gone to the answer. If they didn't answer the question, then I just pretty much used the first thing out of their mouth. So here's the first question that was asked, and of course you weren't allowed to answer. Mike, go ahead.
Good evening from the Magnus Arena at the University of Denver in Denver, Colorado. And I welcome you to the first of the 2012 presidential debates. Let's start the economy, and let's begin with how you would go about creating new jobs. A coin toss is determined. Mr. President, you go first.
20 years ago, I became the luckiest man on earth because Michelle Obama agreed to marry me.
My plan has 5 basic parts. 1, get us energy independent, North American energy independent. That creates about 4 million jobs. Number 2, open up more trade, particularly in Latin America. Crack down on China if and when they cheat. Number 3, make sure our people have the skills they need to succeed, and the best schools in the world. We're far away from that now. Number 4, get us to a balanced budget. Number 5, champion small business.
Okay, Governor, there you go. You should have been allowed to be the third guy to answer that question. What do we do about jobs?
Well, I think that, first off, we need to balance the federal budget, that if we don't, we're going to find ourselves in a monetary collapse, and that's going to be a horrible situation. When it comes to jobs, I say eliminate income tax, eliminate corporate tax, abolish the IRS, replace all of that with one federal consumption tax. I'm embracing the fair tax. I think that's the answer when it comes to tens of millions of American jobs, because in a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector does not create tens of millions of jobs, I don't know what it takes to create tens of millions of jobs. Since a fair tax, since a consumption tax ends up bleeding out all existing non-transparent taxes from goods and services, that's the answer when it comes to exports, not tariffs. Who benefits from tariffs? Nobody benefits from tariffs. We pay the tariffs. When it comes to free trade from China, if they're going to subsidize the goods and services that they're sending to the United States, that's to our advantage. That's to their disadvantage. So genuine free trade, let's adopt the fair tax. Manufacturing jobs flock back to the United States in a zero corporate tax rate environment.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. This is fun. You ready for question number 2?
Ready.
All right. Fire it up, Mike.
We're still on the economy, and specifically on what to do about the federal deficit, the federal debt. And the question, Governor Romney, you go first.
Yeah.
And the question is this: what are the differences between the two of you as to how you would go about tackling the deficit problem in this country?
Well, mathematically, there are 3 ways that you can cut a deficit. 1, of course, is to raise taxes. Number 2 is to cut spending, and number 3 is to grow the economy. I want to lower spending and encourage economic growth at the same time. What things would I cut from spending? Well, first of all, I will eliminate all programs by this test if they don't pass it. Is the program so critical it's worth borrowing money from China to pay for it? And if not, I'll get rid of it. Obamacare's on my list. I apologize, Mr. President. I'm sorry, Jim. I'm going to stop the subsidy to PBS. I'm going to stop other things. I like PBS. I love Big Bird. I actually like you, too. But I'm not going to keep on spending money on things to borrow money from China to pay for. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'll take programs that are currently good programs, but I think could be run more efficiently at the state level and send them to the state. Number three, I'll make government more efficient. Going to cut back the number of employees, combine some agencies and departments. My cutbacks will be done through attrition, by the way. This is the approach we have to take to get America to a balanced budget.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
Let's make sure that we are cutting out those things that are not helping us grow. And so I put forward a specific $4 trillion deficit reduction plan. It's on a website. You can look at all the numbers, what cuts we make and what revenue we raise.
Governor, sorry about how long Romney's answer was, but he was actually answering the question, so I let it go. What do we do about the deficit?
Well, we need to balance the federal budget now, not 28 years from now, but now, and that should not be including growth as part of the formula. Let's cut $1.4 trillion worth of federal spending now, and that means starting with the entitlements, Medicaid, Medicare. Social Security is absolutely savable, so I want to go on record here as it's a problem that's pale in comparison to Medicare. But it also involves military spending. Let's take military spending back to 2003 spending levels. Let's start with a premise that we should have a strong national defense, but that's the operative word, defense, not offense and not nation building. Back to a balanced budget. It means Medicaid, Medicare. Devolve both these programs back to the states. The federal government needs to get out of the healthcare delivery business completely. Give it up to 50 laboratories of innovation and best practice. So the federal government needs to block grant the states 43% less money than what we're currently spending, because that's what we're borrowing and printing money to the tune of right now. But the federal government needs to block grant the states. And based on my experience as governor of New Mexico, they do away with the strings and the mandates. I can oversee the delivery of health care to the poor and those over 65. But if we don't get control of our spending, we're going to find ourselves in a monetary collapse with nothing left over. If there is growth, and there will be growth as a result of balancing the federal budget, getting our spending in line with our revenues, if there is growth, then we use that growth to pay down the $16 trillion in debt that we have.
Governor, what you're saying makes so much sense to me. I'm still perplexed why you're being left off the debate stage.
Well, what's great is to have truth as the whole card. And by truth, what we should have in this country right now is a raging debate and discussion over how we have to cut Medicare, because Medicare is not sustainable. It's a benefit that you and I pay $30 into and get a $100 benefit, and by extension, we pay in $30,000, we get back a $100,000 benefit. It's absolutely not sustainable, as is government spending right now. If we don't get this under control, we're going to find ourselves with nothing, and that's what no one seems to recognize is the alternative to cutting Medicare by 43% is no health care at all for those over 65. When it comes to cutting Medicaid by 43%, what no one is recognizing is the alternative is no safety net for those that are poor.
Governor, are they going to give you a shot at appearing on either of the remaining two presidential debates, or you've just been excluded entirely?
Well, we filed suit in Washington, D.C., and so that's two suits now that we filed over this. And, of course, if you don't file the suit, and if you're not on the ballot in all 50 states, you don't stand a chance of getting into these debates. So right now, I am on the ballot in 47 of the 50 states. We're litigated in the other three. Apparently, we're just within minutes of getting a favorable rating, we believe, in Pennsylvania, one of the three. And a worst case, I will be a write-in candidate in Michigan. That's another one of the three. And then Oklahoma, we are also litigated in. I think Oklahomans should be embarrassed over the political situation there that has excluded me as the Libertarian candidate for president. When we have to submit 50,000 signatures to get on the ballot, when Romney and Obama don't have to garner nearly as many signatures, that is not fair at all, or if any whatsoever. In many states, they're not required to submit a single signature to be on the ballot.
Please play number 3. Question number 3.
I'm still on the economy on another part of it.
Okay.
All right. All right. This is segment 3, the economy. Entitlements. Do you see a major difference between the two of you on Social Security?
I suspect that on Social Security, we've got a somewhat similar position. Social Security is structurally sound. It's going to have to be tweaked the way it was by Ronald Reagan and Democratic Speaker Tip O'Neill. But the basic structure is sound.
We'll follow up on this. First, Governor Romney, you have 2 minutes on Social Security and entitlements.
And the answer is neither the President nor I are proposing any changes for any current retirees or near retirees, either to Social Security or Medicare.
Governor, the quandary I have whenever I hear that is in the Ryan plan, in the Democratic proposals as well, they are carving out basically the baby boomers and saying we're not going to do anything about the baby boomers. Everything's the same. But back when, and you're a year older than I am, in the 11th grade, I took a business statistics course, and one of the first things we learned in that course was that Social Security was heading for trouble, as was Medicare. They were not sustainable in their present form, and to me, to take the baby boomers, who are the problem, off the table takes a resolution to the problem off the table. Am I wrong there?
I completely agree. We should have a raging debate and discussion in this country over how we slash Medicare. Now, on Social Security, I am proposing the fair tax. I'm proposing eliminating any withholdings from your payroll check. They would go away. No more IRS. So no more Social Security withholding, no more Medicare withholding, no more unemployment withholding. All of that would come out of the proceeds of the fair tax. When it comes to Social Security, very simply, it's a system that needs to take in more money than what it pays out. So to do that, we need to raise the retirement age. These are the tweaks that need to take place. They're really more than tweaks, but this is what we have to do. Raise the retirement age, change the escalator built into Social Security from the wage index to the inflation rate. I think we could have a very fair means testing when it comes to Social Security. How much did you pay in? How much are you getting paid out relative to your income? Should you get paid out more than what you paid in, given a certain level of income? I think that would be very fair. And then also the notion of opt-in, opt-out. But when both of them say, we're not going to touch Medicare, Medicare is the budget buster. We have to slash Medicare spending. We need to establish a true safety net for those that are in need. But if we're going to bury our heads in the sand over Medicare, a benefit that you and I put $30 into and get a $100 benefit, that is absolutely unsustainable. And it's incredibly unfair that baby boomers are going to retire and we're going to have health care, but you as young people, you are never going to be able to retire. And by the way, there will never be health care available to you because this is just a Ponzi scheme that is unsustainable.
Mike, the fourth question.
What is your view about the level of federal regulation of the economy right now? Is there too much? And in your case, Mr. President, should there be more?
Regulation is essential. You can't have a free market work if you don't have regulation. You have to have regulation so that you can have an economy work. Every free economy has good regulation.
The reason we have been in such an enormous economic crisis was prompted by reckless behavior across the board. The question is, does anybody out there think that the big problem we had is that there was too much oversight and regulation?
Hard to believe they really didn't answer the question, Governor. What about regulation?
Well, Alan, regulation very simply is the rules and regulations that exist to administer law. That's rules and regulations. The President of the United States, the head of the executive, in essence, controls all rules and regulations because the President of the United States appoints all of the agency heads. And so in the administration of law comes rules and regulations in administering the law. So President of the United States controls all rules and regulations. As governor of New Mexico, I controlled all rules and regulations. I want to say that rules and regulations in New Mexico got better on a daily basis with just a root in common sense. If it was going to cost more time and more money to have to comply with rules and regulations and weren't going to make us any safer, weren't going to make us any more healthy, why have them? And I would like to point out that after Enron, Sarbanes-Oxley included mark-to-market accounting as one of the regulations to deal, well, again, that was in the legislation. And when they came out with that legislation, that rule, I thought, holy cow, if this isn't the most warranted rule and regulation I've ever heard of, I've never heard of one, and yet that one may have precipitated the 2008 collapse, because in a multi-trillion-dollar mortgage market in 2008, there was one trade for $180,000 in a multi-trillion-dollar market at 5 cents on the dollar, and all banks had to value their assets at that point at 5 cents on the dollar or go to jail. Well, that was the precipitator of the 2008 collapse. So there are no really good rules or regulations. You'd like to think that it should be based on common sense, but none of us seem to be able to predict the outcomes when it comes to rules and regulations.
I mean, the consequences, the rule of unintended consequences?
The rule of unintended consequences. And none of us can see into all this. And by the way, laws exist. You break the law, you are liable when it comes to breaking the law. Rules and regulations, the attempt on government's part to make us comply with the law. Look, you break the law, you're liable, and you are liable for prosecution. Rules and regulations, look, it's government's attempt to make sure that we don't break the law. Well, I'm going to argue in most cases, time and money is what gets added to all of our lives without making us any safer, without making us any more healthy.
Governor, aren't a lot of the regulations actually put into place to protect incumbent businesses, or in other words, campaign contributors?
Well, I argue that most legislation that passes, and again, the extension of laws that gets passed, are the rules and regulations that go along with the laws. But yes, crony capitalism is alive and well in this country. Both parties have their hands out to sell loopholes, if you will. Abolish income tax, abolish corporate tax, eliminate the IRS. You know what? I think half of Washington lobbyists get pink slips as a result of that, because half of them are there to garner these special loopholes. Laws that pass are, for the most part, laws that protect the really big business and detract from competition, not actually bring it about. So often, the criticism of free markets is actually criticism of crony capitalism, as it should be. But free markets in this country, we move further and further away from free market when we should be getting closer and closer to it.
Governor, you're making so much sense. It angers me that you were not allowed last week to appear on that debate stage. This is the message people need to hear, and what we got was Big Bird.
What we got is Big Bird. Gee, let's cut 1.0. I don't know what it is, but it's got to be like 0.00001% of the budget. Come on. We've got to get at the heart of this. We're smart. I think we all recognize that we're in deep, deep trouble, and that it's going to involve mutual sacrifice on all of our parts. I'd like to think that mutual sacrifice is the key word here. The key notion is that if we're all engaged in this, then we're all okay. We all get into this together. We fix it together. We get out of it together. But the fact is that we're not in it all together. There are those that have advantage. And that's not what this country is about. What this country can be about is a level playing field for all of us. And if we see that in government, that's a confidence. That's not a detractor.
We're speaking to former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson, currently running for president on the Libertarian ticket. Governor, what can we do to make sure that you are allowed to participate in at least one of these debates?
Well, it is getting, I think we've deluged the the Presidential Debate Commission. I'll point out that the Presidential Debate Commission is not a federal government entity in any way whatsoever. It's an entity, it's a private entity set up by Democrats and Republicans to see who gets in the debates. Well, they have no interest whatsoever in seeing a third party on stage. I want to make the pitch that everybody consider that throwing away their vote and voting for me in this election. If everybody will do that, I'll find myself as the next president of the United States, and I'm going to pledge that nobody will regret that. That we'll have controversy, me as president, but the controversy will be over how we deal with these difficult issues, as opposed to, politicians burying their heads in the sand, somehow believing that Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy are coming. They're not. We're in control of this, but we need to take control of it.
Governor, I have taken to pointing out that if you are concerned about the federal budget deficit, if you are concerned about the well-being of our children and our grandchildren, and you're going to vote for either one of those two mainstream candidates, then you're the one wasting your vote. Vote for Governor. You like that one?
I do. That's good.
Well, I mean, it is the truth, because
it is the truth. It's great to have truth as the whole card.
Governor Gary Johnson, next week we've got your running mate coming on after, and he's going to participate in that vice presidential debate, whether they let him or not. Governor, it's always an honor to have you, sir.
Alan, it's always great to be with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go to the website, Gary Johnson 2012. We need to get this guy heard, and you need to support him. Governor, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.